The past few days, social media has been flooded with explosive claims about Donald Trump and ICE operations in Minneapolis, with dramatic headlines claiming that the Trump administration invaded the Ecuadorian consulate, violated international law, and committed crimes against humanity. These posts are being shared widely across X, YouTube, and TikTok, often with emotional commentary, intense music, and alarming captions. Some suggest that the United States is now in the middle of an international crisis, while others frame it as a human rights catastrophe. While these stories are attention grabbing, it is important to slow down and separate what is claimed from what is verified. Understanding the context, the rules, and the actual events is essential before accepting the dramatic narrative as fact. What social media is claiming. The primary claim circulating online is that Trump's ICE agents tried to forcibly enter the Ecuadorian consulate in Minneapolis. Headlines use phrases like ICE Gestapo or Trump invades consulate to suggest a deliberate, unlawful raid against the sovereign territory of Ecuador within the U.S. Some posts describe Ecuadorian nationals as being trapped, under threat of arrest or deportation, inside the consulate, while armed agents allegedly attempted to barge in. Other viral posts extend the narrative to broader claims about ICE detention centers, describing conditions as concentration camp-like, with children and adults being crammed into cells with no basic facilities. Some videos highlight protests outside ICE facilities, sometimes depicting confrontations between agents and journalists, emphasizing physical altercations, tear gas, and threats. Many of these clips present the situation as if it were unprecedented, a dramatic escalation in U.S. immigration enforcement, supposedly sanctioned directly by Trump. Separating facts from viral exaggeration. First, the consulate incident did occur in Minneapolis, and it involved an interaction between ICE agents and Ecuadorian officials. According to statements from the Ecuadorian government, ICE attempted to approach or enter the consulate, but the consulate officials prevented any unauthorized entry. This aligns with the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations, 1963, which protects foreign diplomatic missions and prohibits law enforcement from entering without permission. Ecuador filed a formal diplomatic protest, which is standard protocol in such situations. The key fact here is that ICE did not succeed in entering the consulate. Social media posts suggesting a full-scale raid or invasion overstate the situation. There was no breach of the consulate's premises, no hostages, and no violence inside the consulate. The language of Gestapo or invasion is a metaphor used for dramatic effect, not a factual description. Second, regarding ICE detention centers. Concerns about conditions in detention facilities like Dilley, Texas, and Baltimore, Maryland are real. Independent investigations and media reports have documented overcrowding, limited access to hygiene facilities, and strained resources. However, descriptions calling these concentration camps exaggerate the historical context and carry strong emotional connotations that are misleading. The situation is serious and accountability is warranted, but careful language is necessary to maintain accuracy. Third, social media often frames videos and clips out of context. Footage of protests, shouting, or law enforcement presence can make routine enforcement appear extreme. Some videos have been edited to remove timing, background, or context, giving the impression of chaos where the actual situation was tense but controlled. What actually happened? Verified context. Ecuadorian consulate, Minneapolis. ICE agents approached or requested to enter the consulate. The consulate officials refused entry. Ecuador filed a formal protest, and the U.S. acknowledged the diplomatic protocol requirements. No one inside the consulate was harmed, and no law enforcement operation forcibly breached the premises. ICE detention centers. Conditions in some detention centers are crowded and challenging. Complaints include limited beds, sanitation issues, and restricted access for lawyers. Congressional oversight, lawsuits, and media coverage continue to bring attention to these concerns. However, claims of systematic abuse or orchestrated cruelty are largely sensationalized in viral content. Protests and journalist confrontations. Protests near ICE facilities occurred, and there were some clashes between law enforcement and media personnel. Use of less lethal munitions, such as rubber bullets or tear gas, was reported. While any injury or aggression is concerning, the events depicted in viral clips are often cropped or edited for dramatic effect, giving the impression of larger chaos than the verified reports indicate. Understanding the language and framing. It is important to note how social media language shapes perception. Words like Gestapo, invasion, terroristic conduct, or concentration camps are used to provoke outrage. These terms create emotional impact, but do not always reflect legal or factual reality. When engaging with these claims, verify sources. Statements from official consulate, embassy, or U.S. government releases carry more weight than viral clips. Understand protocol. Diplomatic missions operate under international law. Unauthorized entry is prohibited, and complaints are handled through formal diplomatic channels. Consider context. Videos showing crowded detention centers or protests should be contextualized with dates, locations, and official reports. Legal and international context. The Vienna Convention on Consular Relations, 1963, clearly establishes that foreign consulates are protected from unauthorized entry by host nation authorities. Any attempt by ICE to enter the Ecuadorian consulate without permission would be a violation. Reports confirm that consulate officials stopped ICE agents, so while a protocol breach was attempted, it was prevented, and the consulate remained secure. Ecuador's formal protest is standard diplomatic practice and not an indication of catastrophic failure. Similarly, detention centers are governed by U.S. federal law, including rights to legal counsel, standards of care, and congressional oversight. Problems in detention centers require policy solutions, inspections, and accountability, but they do not equate to organized atrocities, as some posts suggest. The role of social media in amplifying perception. The speed and reach of social media amplify outrage. A few seconds of video can become a viral narrative within hours. Emotional language, dramatic music, and selective editing make ordinary events seem unprecedented. When this happens, online users often see repetition without context, reinforcing the sense of crisis. Extreme language, ICE Gestapo, concentration camp, triggers emotional reactions before facts are considered. The story spreads faster than formal verification from government, media, or international sources. What we can responsibly say ICE attempted to approach the Ecuadorian consulate in Minneapolis. Consulate officials prevented entry. No forced breach occurred. Ecuador filed a formal diplomatic protest, as expected under international law. Some detention centers have challenging conditions, overcrowding, and complaints about access to legal counsel, but claims of systematic torture or concentration camps are exaggerated. Protests occurred near ICE facilities. Some confrontations with journalists or law enforcement were reported, but videos are often edited for dramatic effect. Social media amplification has magnified perception of danger and crisis beyond what has been verified. Key takeaways for viewers. Always question extreme language. Words like Gestapo, invasion, or meltdown often exaggerate reality. Verify claims using official sources, government statements, international law protocols, and credible reporting. Understand the difference between protocol violations, misconduct, and hyperbolic descriptions. Context matters. Footage alone can be misleading. Check dates, locations, and unedited sources when possible. Engage critically with content. Viral narratives prioritize clicks and emotion, not accuracy. Conclusion. The situation in Minneapolis involving ICE and the Ecuadorian consulate is serious and deserves attention. Protocol violations or aggressive actions by law enforcement must be examined, and accountability should follow established legal and diplomatic procedures. Conditions in detention centers are an ongoing concern that require oversight and reform. However, social media exaggeration has transformed a complex legal and administrative issue into a dramatic, almost apocalyptic narrative. The consulate was not breached, no one inside was harmed, and diplomatic channels are functioning. Detention center conditions are being addressed by advocacy, oversight, and legal channels. By separating verified facts from viral exaggeration, viewers can understand the real issues, advocate for justice responsibly, and avoid falling for emotionally manipulative narratives. Understanding the difference between perception and verified reality is essential in navigating modern political stories. In short, while the viral stories are alarming, the actual events are contained, lawful, and currently managed through formal channels. The situation highlights the need for clear reporting, careful language, and critical thinking when consuming politically charged content online.